Hello guys and welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to be showing you how to respond to IB questions. So IB questions are kind of tricky because they demand a specific format for them to be answered correctly. So today we'll be working with one specific example. This might seem, this question will be, the question we'll be answering, we'll be working on is this one: explain how plants capture and use light in photosynthesis. At the beginning, this might seem like an easy question to answer if you are familiar with the process of photosynthesis and how it works and etc. But before you jump over to answer it, there are some very important points you must know and always keep in mind when answering an IB question. So first of all, we need to identify the common term, which is, in this case, explain. The common term is almost always the first word of the question. Now, according to the IB guide from 2016, the common term explain requires a detailed account of the causes and reasons. And if you don't believe me, let's go to the IB guide 2016. Here you go. Explain. Give a detailed account including reasons or causes. So now that you believe me, let's move on. Let's analyze now the question. Explain how plants capture and use light in photosynthesis are. So in reality, there are 2 points. They're asking you how plants capture and use. Therefore, you must explain 2 actions in detail. So what are they expecting? Quite a longish answer, to be honest, but consists in the details. You don't want to give too much information that is not really that necessary, because trust me, that will be taking you a lot of time. So now that you have sort of the background information to answer, let's move on and we'll answer the question. Recall what was photosynthesis? So, in short, photosynthesis is the production of carbon compounds in cells using light energy. In other words, it's a process in which plants take solar energy and convert it into sugar. Here's a chemical formula if you in case have forgotten about it. Notice that on your left side you have the reactants, and the right side you have the products. And notice how this chemical formula is the reverse of cellular respiration, but you already know that. Okay, so let's go back to the question. How plants exactly capture and use the light in photosynthesis? So we already defined what is photosynthesis, and we need to always keep in mind that explain requires a quite detailed answer, so we must define what are the reasons and causes of why this happens, as I already mentioned. In this case, they are asking you to explain 2 things, 2 actions, how plants capture and use the light in photosynthesis. So let's focus first in the verb capturing, the first action. So plants contain an organelle called chloroplast. Here it is. This is a beautiful chloroplast, though. I love it. Now the light capture part takes place between the spaces of the thylakoids. So remember, this was the thylacos, the pancake-like structure, and the first part of the answer takes part in this space, which is called the lumen. So inside the lumen, you'll find a chlorophyll. Remember, chlorophyll are green light pigments that absorb this color. That is the reason why plants have this color. That is the reason why chlorophyll is this color. The primary role of the chlorophyll is to capture light energy and convert it to chemical energy. This photo, how plants capture energy is by a light particle called photon. This photon is energized and excites the electrons that surround them. Chlorophyll A, which is the primary chlorophyll, acts as a primary electron donor in the electron transport chain. From there, the energy from the sun will ultimately become chemical energy that can be used by the organisms for cellular processes. So we already answered our first question. Our first action, capture. Now let's move on to the use part. Remember that photosynthesis is a 2-step process. The first one, the light-dependent reactions. So all that I mentioned before is actually the first part of the light-dependent reactions. I just wanted to explain it aside to highlight how we first answer the first action. So as I already mentioned, light is captured in the form of photons, which are light particles. These photons excite the electrons that are used to produce ATP. Then the energized electrons are given to the carrier molecules NADP+, which is used along the ATP in the light-independent reactions. Electrons that were not trapped in by the chlorophyll are replaced by water, which is split to produce oxygen and hydrogen, both products of photosynthesis. We must remember that all of this takes place in the lumen. So I know that I already said like a bunch of information. So I actually have these bullets for you guys to remember what it needs to be answered. This is like a little summary of what I have just said and what happens in the light-dependent reactions. So now we're ready to jump into our second step, our second cycle of photosynthesis, known as the Calvin cycle, because well, it's also known as the light-independent reaction because it occurs without the need of the light. So, but now we are at the stroma, outside the lumen. So, this is our lumen. We are at the stroma, this part, not inside. Okay. Hi, mom. Anyway. ATP produced from the light-dependent reactions and hydrogen electrons are transferred into the stroma first. The ATP and ADPH from the light-independent reactions are used to reduce carbon dioxide and converted to be stored in the chemical bonds in carbohydrates such as glucose. So now you're all set. It's actually the part of the Calvin cycle. So light-dependent reactions, Calvin cycle. Now that you're set, remember that your command term is explain and not define or describe. So you must not describe everything that happens, for example, in the Calvin cycle or light-dependent reactions. Remember what is your main goal. So I want to show you how I will answer to these questions in a real exam. Oh, it's actually this part. Yeah. So this is how I will answer the question in the exam. So I'm not gonna read all of it because yeah, we don't have much time. But you can pause it. You can pause the video and read it. That will be very useful. So anyway, but if you guys actually read it, notice how I didn't actually include all the information that I just said. I also made like another summary of it because, as I already said before, remember that you are explaining how plants capture and use the light in energy. You're not fully describing everything that happens in the process of photosynthesis. If they ask you define the process of photosynthesis or define the Calvin and the light-dependent reaction, so what happens inside, now you must describe like everything that fully happens in the photosynthesis process. But in this case, the question was different, and with this, you will be achieving your goal. So that was all for today, guys, and thank you so much. Stay tuned, always. I love you.